Everybody, welcome to the briefing room. I'm Devin Dwyer on this Monday with our White House reporter Catherine Falders. Great to have you with us. Hope you had a good weekend. Spring has finally arrived here in the nation's capital, and we're happy about it. Some breaking news right now coming into ABC News. Law enforcement sources tell us they have disrupted a major possible truck attack on pedestrians down at the National Harbor area in Maryland. This is a popular tourist destination just outside the nation's capital. A lot of conventions are held there. 10 million visitors every year. Our Justice reporter Mike Levine broke the story just a short time ago. He joins us now from the Justice Department. Mike, what are you learning?
Yeah, authorities believe that they stopped what could have been a true big terror attack. A man from the D.C. area, likely Maryland, was arrested, I think, last week by law enforcement authorities. And he was at the National Harbor, a huge tourist attraction outside of the nation's capital. And he was with a stolen truck. And authorities believed that he was contemplating using that truck to run over tourists.
And we believe, Mike, that this was not actually a sting operation, but they did encounter this individual in potentially ready to do the act?
Yeah, authorities say that what happened here is that whole see something, say something mantra that we keep hearing about, that people just reported suspicious activity, they reported concerns, and authorities were able to stop this.
All right, Mike Levine breaking the story, just coming in right now. Much more at abcnews.com, and I know, Mike, you'll have more reporting later today here on ABC News Live. Thanks for that. Turning now to some other breaking news that's just coming in. A major shakeup underway at the top of two of the nation's leading homeland security agencies. The president pulling the trigger, Catherine Falders, first overnight on his Homeland Security Secretary, Kirstjen Nielsen, forcing her out. Now, just moments ago, we've learned that the Secret Service director has also been asked to leave the administration. What's going on here?
Yeah, and this came as a surprise to us. Now, of course, we're still reporting this out, but it's not clear whether this departure at the Secret Service was connected to Nielsen's departure overnight. We know the president has been upset with many of these officials, that he's wanted them to leave, but still, they don't appear at this point, at least, to be connected to one another.
But certainly coming at the same time, potentially others in the pipeline. Let's go now to the White House. Our Alex Mallon has been reporting on the Secret Service story just coming in. Alex, what do we know about the decision, who the president has chosen to replace the outgoing Secret Service director?
Yeah, so like Catherine said, this caught the Secret Service largely by surprise. But our Jack Date, a reporter in our Justice Unit, says that that he was told, Alice was told actually a couple of weeks ago, that he would be let go as part of a broader cleaning of house at DHS. And what we're learning, according to several officials in the administration, is that there's two other top DHS officials who are potentially targets of this kind of cleaning of house that's going on. And that would include the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Director Francis Cisna and the Office of the General Counsel's John Mitnick. Now, this would leave a plethora of officials at the top upper ranks of DHS, either out in their positions, either vacant, but a lot of non-Senate confirmed positions at this crucial agency that handles both immigration, terrorism, drug and law enforcement, and cybersecurity. So some key vacancies there. Now we know that that Alice will be replaced by James M. Murray. Now he's a career member of the U.S. Secret Service. That is a contrast from Tex Alice, who actually came from the outside. He was a former Marine. So this is somebody that is coming in from the inside. He was a former leader of the Washington field office here in D.C., and he is expected to take over as director beginning in May.
And Alex, you know, we're seeing here the statement from Press Secretary Sarah Sanders. Randolph Alice served 40 years in government service, caught a lot of people by surprise, as you said. Do we think this is connected at all to that security breach at Mar-a-Lago a couple weeks ago, that Chinese woman who was captured with malware on her thumb drives?
So what we understand is that Alice was actually told that he was going to be transitioning out of his role before the Mar-a-Lago incident happened last weekend. So we don't believe that the two are currently connected, but this is certainly a critical time for the Secret Service, as it has to answer questions before Congress about this incident as it continues investigating really the motives of this alleged Chinese spy. So I think it's definitely we saw obviously this promotion from inside the ranks now. It's something that during the Obama administration, for instance, this is something that deeply affects morale at the department. These promotions, the leadership there, it really has a direct impact on the first family and all the other people that the Secret Service is tasked with protecting.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alex Malin, for us at the White House. And Catherine, certainly a surprise because the Secret Service has been out of the news lately. They haven't been generating any of those negative headlines that Mark say about 5 years ago with the fence jumpers, scandal in the ranks of the Secret Service. Want to bring in now Don Mahalik, an ABC News contributor and former top Secret Service official. She joins us on the phone. Don, thank you so much for calling in. Want to start with any reaction that you might be getting from your former colleagues inside the agency. It does seem like this was a complete shock to many people.
It clearly was a surprise to the Secret Service and to the agents in the Secret Service. Anytime you have a sudden sea change of the director spot, it tends to be shocking. But the Secret Service is a very professional organization, and it's the boots on the ground that get the job done. And my assessment is that the rank and file agents are still going to perform as they have before this.
Yeah, and they have really performed exemplary service so far in this administration. There have been no major issues to speak of, either with security at the White House or elsewhere. We're all trying to wrap our minds around what could have prompted this. Somebody with a 40-year track record in government service, what in your mind could have risen to the level that would have suggested the president to get rid of Alice?
That's a great question, and one I think we're all trying to answer. But from what we know is that the administration was looking to take DHS in a new direction, and they were looking to make some changes at the top of the leadership positions within DHS. And as you guys just reported, the director was apparently told a couple of weeks ago that they would be making some changes down the road. Of course, timing-wise, it couldn't look worse or be worse timing. But apparently this was something that had been discussed by the administration with these officials, and they just decided to execute on it now.
All right, Don Mahalik joining us on the phone, former top Secret Service official, ABC News contributor. Don, thank you so much for that perspective. A lot of shock, both in the Secret Service and at the Homeland Security Department, a sprawling government agency, the second largest, Catherine, second to the Defense Department. That was set into a tailspin late yesterday when Kirstjen Nielsen, the Homeland Security Secretary, went to the White House in the afternoon around 6 o'clock. She left no longer in that position, and that was not something that was planned. You've been reporting a lot about how this went down.
Yeah, so just to recap generally how this went down, as you remember, she was down at the border with the president on Friday. He was visiting the Calexico version of the border, or region of the border. She had been there all week, and she joined up with him there. Now, this comes as he was threatening to close portions of the border or the full border. And really what happened was after that trip, as I'm told by sources close to her, she called the president on Friday. You see images, by the way, of them there just on Friday. So after that trip, after they parted ways and she left, she called the president on Friday and requested a meeting with him. She wanted to talk about a way forward, and she wanted to meet with him this past weekend. So I'm told by folks close to her that she went over to the White House yesterday at 5 o'clock, and she believed that she was giving the president a border update. Now, that turned in to a meeting about her future, and by 6 o'clock, the president had tweeted that she was actually leaving her post. Now, she was forced to resign. She was forced out. They've been at odds really for some time, ever since her White House ally, the former chief of staff, John Kelly, left. They've clashed on a number of issues. A source telling me yesterday that the president was holding her personally responsible for the border numbers. He did not understand why she couldn't personally fix it. The source said that quote led to intense clashes and angry phone calls and frustration between her and the president. And
those numbers have been on the rise.
Yep.
Families, children, migrants showing up at the U.S.-Mexico border, climbing despite this president's tough crackdown on immigration, certainly an irritant to President Trump, but a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
The Department of Homeland Security is a critical agency in this government. It oversees not just immigration, but TSA at all airports is overseeing. The Coast Guard as part of Homeland Security. And of course, anti-terrorism efforts. FEMA is part of that operation as well. So there's really a lot that Kirstjen Nielsen oversaw. We don't know just yet who the president will nominate to replace her her, but a lot on the line. We did hear from Kirstjen Nielsen for the first time just a short time ago when she came out of her house to address the news that broke late overnight that she had been fired. Take a listen.
I don't have any new announcements. I just want to thank the president again for the tremendous opportunity to serve this country. I'm forever grateful and proud of the men and women of DHS who work so hard every day to execute their missions and to protect the homeland. I really look forward to continuing to support them from the outside. I've spent the last 24 hours since yesterday talking with government officials, with administration officials, members of Congress to ensure a smooth transition. As you know, DHS has a vast array of missions. I want to make sure that we continue to execute them all with excellence through the transition. I share the president's goal of securing the border. I will continue to support all efforts to address the humanitarian and security crisis on the border. And other than that, I'm on my way to keep doing what I can for the next few days. So thank you all for being here.
So there's Kirstjen Nielsen standing by the president. No critical words for him. Of course, she's still going to work today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. She said will be her last day, Catherine. But it's been interesting to see the reaction in this town to her news of her departure. There have been very few people sad that she's leaving, both among Republicans and Democrats, though there's certainly some praise for her service. Very few people lamenting her departure. In fact, Nancy Pelosi had a pretty harsh statement about her, specifically referencing that policy that Kirstjen Nielsen implemented that resulted in some children and families being detained, the so-called zero tolerance policy. She says it's deeply alarming. The Trump administration official who put children in cages is reportedly resigning because the president wants to go in a much tougher direction. And that it seems to be a true statement from what you're hearing, Catherine.
Yeah, now we know that McAleenan is going to be the acting DHS secretary, but a lot of these names that have been floated, like Ken Cuccinelli, the former Virginia Attorney General, Chris Kobach, these are hardliners on immigration. So,
and there we see Kevin McAleenan, who is currently the Customs and Border Protection head. He's now going to oversee the entire Homeland Security apparatus, at least on an acting basis.
Yeah, and what I would note about him is while he has been willing in his role to implement the president's hardline agenda, he's also taken issue with him a little bit. He was one of the first people to come out and dispute, in a sense, his immigration policy. He was also one of the areas he's been at odds with the president is U.S. aid to Central America. He's praised its effectiveness, where you know that the president has ordered it cut off.
So what does it say about the direction that the administration could be headed with immigration policy that we are now moving away from Nielsen, who was no softie on immigration? What does it suggest to you about where he's moving now?
Well, look, he said that he wants somebody tougher, that he wants to move in a tougher direction. But I think the question is, though, how does this next person who he nominates, how do they get Senate confirmed? A lot of sources I've spoken to said there's no way that somebody like Ken Cuccinelli or Chris Kobach could be Senate confirmed. And really, how are hardline policies that Nielsen wasn't implementing? Now, remember, she was the face of the child separation policy. Is any of this legal?
Not only was she not, exactly. Not only was she not implementing them, but she wasn't able to implement them because the courts put a lot of those things on hold. We will see if the president makes another turn back toward family separation. Of course, the asylum ban is tied up in court. His travel ban was initially struck down. So all of these things, as we head into campaign season, will be challenged not only by who he has in that job, but by those legal parameters.
Exactly.
We want to button up this segment today by going big picture one more time on the state of affairs in the West Wing. You spend a lot of time there. There are so many acting secretaries and officials over there. This president has said he likes acting, but yet it's sort of everything is in limbo. Take a look here. We've got Kevin McAleenan, of course. They've got an acting defense secretary, Patrick Shanahan, the acting interior secretary, and several others. I mean, this is sort of extraordinary.
It really is, and I also think it represents a lot of the president's, unwillingness, in a sense, to commit to these posts, to make a decision. I mean, Mick Mulvaney has been his acting chief of staff since John Kelly left months ago. He said that he likes people in acting roles, and honestly, look, I think it's to test some of them out since he's been firing all sorts of people. But you know, who knows whether we get a new DHS secretary or if we stick with the acting.
Yeah, or a new Secret Service director for that matter.
Director.
All of those will require Senate confirmation, and this is a very difficult political environment. Catherine Faulders, thanks for your reporting. Much more ahead on World News Tonight and World News Prime at 8 o'clock tonight here on ABC News Live and on abcnews.com. Shifting gears now overseas, another major development coming out of the State Department just a short time ago. The Trump administration has taken the unprecedented step of declaring Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the country's military, a foreign terrorist organization. It's something that has not been done before and has some pretty significant implications for U.S. troops in the region and for our allies. For more on this, I want to go to the Pentagon, where Louis Martinez has been reporting out this angle on the story. Louis, I want to ask you what this means, practically speaking, to declare Iran's military a terrorist group.
Well, Devin, this is sanctions against the against the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. They're described as Iran's elite military units, and the United States has considered them to be the sponsors of terrorism for decades all across the region. So by the United States naming them as a foreign terrorist organization, what is going to happen here is that sanctions that have already been on the books against some of this organization's top leaders, some of their business entities, anybody that does business with them now faces American criminal prosecution. That's what we're talking about here. So this is adding teeth to the sanctions that we've always heard about over the last couple of years when it comes to Iran. I mean, there's no secret that Iran has been considered to be a sponsor of terrorism when it comes to Yemen, when it comes to Syria, when it comes to even in Iraq, where hundreds of American troops were killed by Iranian-sponsored Shiite groups that targeted American military officers inside Iraq. So this is adding some teeth to the sanctions that the United States has had in place for quite some time. But it's also very significant, as you said, unprecedented. It's the first time that the United States has designated any type of official organization from a government structure as a foreign terrorist organization.
And certainly ratcheting up pressures and tensions between the two countries, which have already been strained given President Trump's trashing of the Iran nuclear deal. Stand by, Louis. I want to bring in now a guest who has some experience in Iran, is Iranian himself. In fact, Mohsen Sazagara is a fellow at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy here in Washington, D.C., also a former founder of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps back in 1979, fled the country and is now a vocal critic and opponent of that group. Sir, thank you so much for joining us today in the briefing room. Given your experience, how do you think this move by the United States will be received over in Iran?
Definitely, it has big impacts on the economy of Iran, because IRGC, with cooperation of the House of the Leader, control about 50% of GDP of Iran. And second, I think that the individuals from IRGC will have problem to travel in other countries, to other countries, especially European ones or allies of the US. But the most important concern in Iran is if it will end to a war between US and Iran. As far as I know, IRGC and the leaders of Iran, they will not put the first step ahead. They will wait and see what will be the action from the United States when they designate the Revolutionary Guard as the terrorist organization.
And do you think, Mohsen, that given Iran's practice of funding some militias in, say, Iraq and elsewhere, that in light of today's developments, that Americans in the region are more at risk for retaliation by some of these Iranian forces?
Not now. You know, as you know, IRGC has succeeded based on doctrine of asymmetric wars, a name for terrorism, I have to say. They have made the biggest network from Afghanistan to Caracas in Venezuela. But again, I don't think that even in some countries like Iraq or Yemen or other countries, with the help of their militia groups that they support, they put the first step ahead. They will wait and see what the U.S. will do.
They will. And before we let you go, sir, was this a smart move on the part of the Trump administration and something that you support as taking a harder line on Iran?
I think that it was a good step. I think that it sent a powerful message, not only to the regime of Iran, but to the people of Iran. Because don't forget that IRGC is the main organization that suppressed the people of Iran as well. So they may have more hope to the future.
All right, Mohsen Sazagar, thank you so much, sir, for joining us, a fellow at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy and a former founder of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps before leaving that country in '79 with the revolution. Thank you, sir. And back to the Pentagon now before we close out this block today with some breaking news, some very sad news just coming in from Afghanistan. Louis Martinez is with us again with the latest. Louis, we're just hearing some reports of several American casualties at a base in Afghanistan.
That's right, Devin. The U.S. military is confirming that 3 U.S. service members and an American contractor were killed in an attack on a convoy outside of the Bagram Air Base. That's the largest U.S. military base in Afghanistan. We understand that 3 other U.S. service members were also injured in this attack. This was a car bomb that exploded as the convoy was passing by. And this is the deadliest incident against U.S. military forces in Afghanistan this year. This is the 5th, 6th, and 7th Americans to be killed in combat there. Now, what we know is that the attacks are being claimed by, the responsibility for the attack is being claimed by the Taliban. Not a surprise there. But remember, there are U.S. talks underway with the Taliban right now to try to come to a peaceful resolution to this decades-long war now in Afghanistan. And though there may be progress on the negotiating table, attacks like this one are reminders that it is still a very deadly situation in Afghanistan, and that the Taliban is going to continue with its attacks even though they're holding peace talks with the U.S.
Wow, incredible that this is happening as those talks are underway. Indeed, Louis Martinez, thanks so much, and our thoughts and prayers are with the families of those Americans killed this afternoon in a suicide bombing at Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan. Finally today, a look ahead to tomorrow when Attorney General Bill Barr will be taking a hot seat up on Capitol Hill, his first public appearance as Attorney General at a hearing before Congress. He'll be before the House Judiciary Committee. The hearing is ostensibly about the budget for the Justice Department, but you can imagine that the Attorney General will be asked plenty of questions about that 4-page summary he wrote about Special Counsel Robert Mueller's 23-month investigation into Russian interference, collusion allegations, obstruction of justice claims. He's also likely to get asked about the Affordable Care Act lawsuit that the Trump administration shocked everyone a couple weeks ago in deciding that it would no longer defend any part of that law and would rather call for the entire thing to be struck down. Bill Barr tomorrow in the hot seat, likely to be quite a contentious hearing. We'll carry much of that for you here on ABC News Live starting at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, full coverage throughout the day. Thanks for joining us here on Monday in the briefing room. I'm Devin Dwyer in Washington. Download the ABC News app for the latest on all the stories we've talked about today. And be back here tomorrow, 3:30 Eastern Time for another edition of the briefing room. Hope to see you then.